Well, all of that comes as the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has wrapped up his latest trip to Israel aimed at advancing the faltering ceasefire talks on Gaza. The U.S. has been unusually critical of Benjamin Netanyahu's government in recent weeks, but on Wednesday, meeting Israeli leaders, Blinken took a firm tone with Hamas, accusing it of not doing enough to agree to the ceasefire.
If Hamas actually purports to care about the Palestinian people and wants to see an immediate alleviation of their suffering, it will take the deal. If it doesn't, I think that's further proof that it doesn't care a bit about the Palestinian people.
We're going to talk more about this now with Oliver McTernan, the director of the NGO Forward Thinking, who joins me now live from Tel Aviv. Oliver, we have been waiting for Hamas to agree to this truce for several days now. What, in your opinion, is the holdup?
Well, I think there was an improvement in the Israeli offer, and I think that the fact that they were willing to allow the people in the southern part of Gaza to return to the north, that they had agreed in principle to remove Israeli soldiers from Gaza, was good. But the trouble was the details of that had to be worked out. But I think the main stumbling block was the fact that there was no movement on the fact of a permanent ceasefire. And what Hamas have been asking for, and I think the people of Gaza and a lot of the global community, because of the humanitarian conditions in Gaza, the fact that 2.3 million people are living in daily life-changing conditions, that a permanent ceasefire is essential. I think that's the real sticking point.
So given that, where do these truce talks stand at the moment?
Well, I think they're still waiting for the Hamas leadership to give a definite answer. So we're in limbo. But what worries me that while we're in limbo and we're focusing on how these talks are going on, the reality on the ground in Gaza keeps changing and changing for the worse because, every day more and more people are being added to the death list. And that's where I think that there is need now for a combination of moral courage as well as political courage on behalf of the global leadership to say to Israel, as friends of Israel, you just cannot go on like this. The consequences will last far beyond the end of this war.
But if that is indeed the case, why do you have someone like U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who seems to be putting so much pressure on Hamas, saying now the ball is really in its court? It needs to accept this ceasefire deal. Absolutely.
Well, from my experience of being involved in hostage negotiation, I think that sort of external pressure is far from helpful. Right at the beginning, we know that there was a double goal set by Netanyahu. One was the demise of Hamas. The second was the return of the hostages. Now, those two objectives were incompatible. I've been saying from day one, you cannot say to someone, I want what you have, the hostages, and secondly, I'm actually going to kill you then. It just blocks any sort of progress. Worse still is when you have this commentary going on, either a threat of greater military activity or the political pressure Blinken has been putting on publicly. All that does, in my experience, is stiffen resistance. It doesn't help. It doesn't move things forward. It just stiffens resistance.
Right. So given what you're saying, it sounds like this already very tentative possible truce is on its last legs. What happens if, again, no agreement is reached?
Well, tragically, I think we're going to see the destruction of Rafah, and we're going to see Gaza left uninhabitable, or, sort of in the sense that at least Rafah, it's not the biggest city, not the most best infrastructure in Gaza, but there is some infrastructure that could enable the rebuilding on the medical, on the health, on the education, on the economy. It could be the center for the regeneration immediately after this war stops. If it is destroyed, those challenges will be far, far greater. So again, I come back to what is desperately needed, both on moral grounds, the fact that we have still a rule-based or claim to have a rule-based international order to protect that, and more important, to protect the hostages, their families, and the 2.3 million people in Gaza. We need moral leadership as well as political leadership, and said this cannot go on.
All right, Oliver, thank you for speaking to us. Oliver McTernan there in Tel Aviv.
Thank you.